Justice, are you calling then for all South Africans to perhaps take the blinkers off, essentially, and start looking at the country the way you're looking at it in this book? I think specifically, perhaps, of my parents and their peers who saw the transition to democracy and who, in some ways, often feel obligated to be hopelessly optimistic about the ANC's promises and perhaps hopelessly optimistic about where we are going.
They have a right to be optimistic because things have been fantastic for, you know, if you take apartheid and what it was and what we've achieved, it's magnificent. The thing is this, it's sustainability of what we have. And I think if you think about an institution like the Hawks, for example, where Anwar Dramat was kicked out, a man who was declared by a high court judge that he is essentially dishonest, was branded a liar by a high court judge, is now the head of the Hawks. Now, if that is the kind of person we're going to put at the head of institutions, as opposed to lambasting people like Thuli Madonsela, the public protector, you begin to say, well, what do we want? Do we want compromised institutions, or do we want institutions that actually work? And for me, the big challenge is that we seem to be moving steadily towards a place where one of President Zuma's former advisors is the head of the IEC. The police seem to be going from one problem to another, Americana to police killing people. All these institutions of our democracy, institutions of accountability, seem to be under immense pressure under this administration. So the optimism of people like, for example, your parents, needs to say, I'm optimistic, but I am not going to look at South Africa in a manner that allows it to slide into something that they don't want it to be. So hopefully this book will say to them, you know what, it's time to assess and say, are we still on the right track?
Now, you very skillfully weave a narrative in some parts of the book that leads us to President Jacob Zuma taking up the presidency. You describe the power plays, if I can call it that were in place. And of course, our viewers will be able to read the book themselves and read it for themselves. But let's say you don't speak too kindly about some of the president's current dealings, be they spending, his relationship with the Gupta family. Was it, were you nervous in writing this type of a scathing, I would say, account of the president?
I think, you know, I come from a tradition that has been very open. I'm lucky enough to come from a family where debate was at the heart and the center of my family. We've always had fights, debates about, oh, you this and so forth. There is a big debate in my family right now about the book itself. It's, oh, Justice, you're too harsh and so forth. So I expected a lot of debate. I expect people to take on me and my views. But one of the things, and one of the things that I think is very hopeful about this country, is that people like me can continue to write what we write. I support, for example, the Free Rasul campaign in so many places, Turkey, other places. If anyone wrote a book like this, they'd be in jail. In South Africa, people say, Justice, I disagree with you and I want to have a fight with you. And I think that is one of the fantastic silver linings about this country. That said, I think that if we don't stand up, if we don't talk about this, if we don't change, then we will very quickly find ourselves in a situation where someone is saying, free Jerusha, free so-and-so, because we stood by and did nothing when we saw the warning lights go on. So for me, this book is about the warning lights, about saying, guys, we need to wake up and smell the coffee, because it's not going as well as we thought it would. It's not going as well as we know we can do.
Well, Justice, I can only imagine what your Twitter feed looks like having all those types of conversations.
I'm having big fights with Jimmy Manyi and others coming for me, and I welcome that. I think debate is good for all of us, and I hope that if there is anything to come out of the book itself, it's that people will begin to grapple with particularly the substantive issues, education system, the state of the institutions, our judiciary. I think we need to have a frank discussion about those issues, because if we don't, we are on the cusp of something that's very, very unpleasant.